I wanted to touch on this, and I felt compelled to touch on this. And I think we all know the situation in Gainesville. It's dire, right? You go 5-7 in year two. There were some Gator fans, I think, that if you would have told them 5-7 in year two of Billy Napier's tenure, they would have said he was getting fired at season's end. But we all heard about the $31 million buyouts, and I would say there were some bright spots that would make you feel like his coming back was going to be worthwhile. I'm not even really sure if in season there was a lot of that outside of the win at South Carolina. But it was felt like, you know what? You have this buyout. It's only been 2 years. Recruiting's going well. Give Billy Napier more time. And he's going to get that third year, right? That 2024 year. He's going to get that 2024 season. At least I think. The hell that has broken loose, the turmoil that has ensued over the last 24 hours or so in Gator country. And again, I felt compelled to talk about this today because I literally, guys, at this point, I cannot log on social media without seeing something about the Gators struggling and the madness that's taking place when it comes to Florida football. Of course, a lot of this stemming because the great edge player, Princely Umiamelin, I'd probably completely butchered his last name, but the Princely kid at edge, who's now the number one edge in the portal, is in. Then you're starting running back. Travis Etienne goes into the portal. Number one running back that is available in the portal. And that has really just set off a chain reaction of chaos when it comes to Florida Gators football. From former players going at current players about, you ain't really a Gator. What are you about? You said Gator for life to, you got fans, a ton of the fan base that is now ready to move on from Billy Napier. They want their AD, Scott Strickland, fired. Guys, admittedly, what I'm seeing right now from Florida and the fan base, it is very eerily similar. And it reminds me to a situation that we saw in Columbia, South Carolina, just a couple years ago. Now, is the situation a little bit different? Sure. What's ironic about me saying this is I'm sure Florida fans feel like, hey, this is a lot like the end of the Will Muschamp era in Gainesville. The energy feels very similar to the end of the Will Muschamp era in Columbia, South Carolina as well. It's one thing to lose games, right? It's one thing to lose games. It happens. You lose games, especially early on in your tenure when you're building a program. But when you start losing trust from your fan base, right? And it only takes, it doesn't take as much evidence as it used to, right? Again, it doesn't take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to figure it out what you have, right? There's so many different things. And because we have so much access, right? We see everything, we follow everything, we take in everything. I feel like you find out really quickly what you have at your head coaching spot. And I know it's only been 2 seasons. And I think Billy Napier is a good head football coach. I'm not so sure he is the guy for Florida. And I like Billy Napier. I have nothing against Billy Napier. Again, I think that if it doesn't work at Florida, I think Billy Napier will be successful wherever he goes. But there's just been things, guys, that are just really hard to overcome. I mean, right, you go on the field. What happened in year two? The damning things that took place, from the lack of organization to the self-inflicted mistakes to the special teams blunders, adding the fact, obviously, you lost to an Arkansas team that won one SEC game. You went 5-7. I mean, all those things. Then the off-field stuff. When you've got your best players, some of your best players jumping ship. And I know this is happening everywhere, all across college sports, all across college football. So there's a lot of fan bases that feel like, man, what's wrong with our culture? What's going on behind closed doors? Why can't we keep these guys on campus? Again, we're seeing it all across the SEC. But it doesn't help when you also go 5-7. Then you go look on social media. And I mean, dude, Gator Nation is unraveling at the seams. And I mentioned it this morning, guys, when I posted about this, and I had some Gator fans come at me sideways. And it's like, I'm not even, I mentioned that on social media about, the Gator fan base on social media looks more dysfunctional than the special teams. Obviously trying to make a crack at a joke, but it wasn't even a slight. It's just an observation as to what I've seen to this point. And it's been pure madness. Again, you look at some of these headlines. This coming from Nick De La Torre, who is a senior writer for the Gators for On3. He said this. This is the title of an article. The Florida Gators missed a real bowl game and must play in the Public Perception Bowl, where they're down 56-0 at halftime. I mean, you then got our guys over at inallkindsofweather.com, who, again, I tagged them. And, I mean, they are ready to burn the thing down. They are ready to burn it down. In all kinds of weather. I've been quiet too long. No more. I'm coming for your job. At Scott Strickland, the AD of Florida. Tagged him. You've waged war on an elite program's prestige in an attempt to shoehorn it into your pseudo-fancy bougie image. And that's just when you're not too busy covering up your coaches abusing their athletes. I mean, guys, it has really, like, the wheels have really fallen off in Gainesville. And allkindsofweather.com also says it ultimately comes down to this. Do you truly love your Gators? Do you love them enough to be willing to fight for their prosperity? Of course, it's easier to fake a smile, pretend to care, and just stop emotionally investing. But see, that won't help the program get better. They want change. What's tough, too, or what's interesting? Listen, I think Gator fans should have high expectations. Florida football should not accept being 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. Certainly, I'm not one to speak on Gator fans' expectations. They know far better than I do. But, what's tough is you inherit a situation that in all kinds of weather, other Gators have talked about, like it was a mess. What Dan Mullen left over, it was a mess. And you're not getting a whole lot of time to build. And I understand you look at what Tennessee did in a short amount of time with Josh Heupel. You look at what Georgia's doing right now, and I know that's something that makes Florida fans cringe. You look at what Florida State has done under Mike Norvell. I will say, to their point, you got to give Billy Napier next year. You're not going to fire Billy Napier in the middle of a portal recruiting cycle. You're not going to do that. And maybe this is stating the obvious, but I think what this goes to show, guys, 2024 is it for Billy Napier. If they don't get it rolling, I think if Florida doesn't go, I know the schedule's brutal. Don't get me wrong. I get that. But if they don't go 7-5 or better, beat a rival maybe, I know they just beat Tennessee this year, but 7-5 or better. I think if it's less than 7-5, I think Billy Napier could very well be out of there. And it's interesting, man, to see the restlessness of Gator Nation grow. A program that, I mean, growing up, man, we all know, like, Florida football was elite. Florida football was what Georgia is practically right now and what Bama is right now. And so to see Florida football so down and out, to see Florida football reeling and unraveling, and I think Gator Nation, you got to give Billy Napier an opportunity to go out in the portal and land some guys. But losing ETN, and then, guys, I forgot to mention this, then you look on social media, and I know it's not the whole, right? It's far from the majority, because every fan base has this group of idiots. Every fan base has them. But to see Gator fans going after ETN's mother, practically, getting in her mentions, getting in her quotes. And again, I know there's a lot of Gators that they will not condone that. They will not, so I'm not trying to say that's the majority. I don't think it is. But the way that fan base right now is unraveling at the seams is a spectacle amongst itself. And I just wonder how Billy Napier overcomes this, if he can. If he can. Unfortunately, guys, it's one of those things. We're in college football now. We're like fans, boosters, supporters. They make their mind up on you really, really, really quickly, right? Because again, it's win now. You don't have 3, 4, 5 years. We're not saying, okay, well, let's let Billy Napier kind of grow into his own at the Florida job. If you're not winning by year 3 in Gainesville, Florida, you're out. You're out. And admittedly, guys, I just, based off what we've seen, based off what we know, I will be very, very, very surprised if Billy Napier is the head coach of the Florida Gators this time next year. What's going to happen with Scott Strickland? Their AD, I have no idea. I have no clue, right? That takes a lot more than just, hey, fans calling for the job. But if the Gators go 6-6 or worse, with all this off-field stuff happening, the portal, decommitments taking place in recruiting, guys, I simply don't see how Billy Napier survives.